The next thing that you are going to use, maybe use the information that you have, or the knowledge that you have gotten from creating these images, to applying those images to our backgrounds. So we are going to start with our first background here, which is a white background with various lines moving across it. So to do that, for these files, I would be I'll be using the standard HTML document that is created by Dreamweaver, then applying a style with the background URL pointing to the image.php that has the values for our background image. So let me open that image.php, and this image.php, we have different things that we are doing, and we are creating various lines that run across the image, and we are using random values for these lines. So by doing that, actually this is the same as what we did, I think, in video number, in image number 12. It's the same as this one here, or maybe these lines are the same as what we did here. So I'm using that same concept, but using a white background. So every time I refresh, I would get different lines with different widths and different density. Okay, so that is it for the first background image. Then in the second one, I kept changing the background color, and then the lines, they have different lengths. Okay, so that is that for that. For the third image, I created a text within the image, placed it in the middle, then drew the diagonal lines, the vertical lines, and the horizontal lines. Then the image here is small, and placing it as a background image actually repeats it both in the X and in the Y axis, and this can be seen here. I think that is background. I think that is image 3. The width is 28 pixels and the height is 16 pixels. In our first file, the width was 1000 pixels and the height was 800 pixels. So that is what we get here. Then after that, I used what we had earlier in this. Maybe it was, I think it was number 7. Yeah, I used this image, then I made it small. I think it was 20 something pixels. I think it is the one that is 28 by 16 pixels. The island was 120. This one is 120 by 60 pixels. Then this one I saved it as 28 by 16. Then when they are lumped up together, we get to see that the midpoints, or rather the lines meet, appears to be glowing, or appears to be having a glowing effect for each point. And even if we refresh and get a different color, those midpoints where the lines meet would always appear to be glowing. And you can even make these lines much more smaller. This is because of the white color here where the lines meet. So after that, I came up with this pattern for this image. image whereby it's actually, maybe I can show you here. It's an image whereby I just created random lines for X and for the image, then put a width of 80 and a height of 60. Maybe if we increase our width and height, you can see the pattern that is below. So this is the pattern, or the patterns. It's actually the same as the first, this first background. Yeah. So it's actually like taking that background, then constraining its height to 6, or its width to maybe 8. You can do maybe like 608. So saving it now, we'll be having, saving it and running it, we'll be having various lines moving across. Maybe you can reduce the height to 60, and we'll be getting more and more lines. So yeah, that is it. Now I changed the lines from being vertical to horizontal, but if I'd like to have maybe horizontal, a vertical lines, vertical lines, then would change the width to be greater than the height, and running it will get another different patterns. Or even you can do maybe 20 by 20. And here we get maybe checkboxes or different patterns. That is it. Then the fifth image, or the fifth background, is made up of small boxes, whereby the background is black and there are some horizontal and vertical lines, and there are also some background components. So maybe I can change, maybe you can make it 600 and 300, and we can view that. So this is how the image looks when it is bigger. You can even make that image much more bigger, and maybe get rid of the vertical and horizontal lines here. So you can create such a background, maybe with few lines, by making that image much more bigger. So the next element is a background whereby I have lines moving parallel to each other with random colors generated. Then I have other lines that cannot be seen here, but they have a black color moving parallel in the opposite direction. That is why they are crisscrossing these lines and creating this pattern, whereby we are having dotted lines on our image. So every time we refresh, we get different like textures and different dots or iterations for our lines, and we get a good texture for our lines. So to do that, what I did, it's I created the image. Then for the image with the bright colors, I used a random value between 0 and 255 for RGB. Then for the dark colors, I use a color that is between 0 and 50, or I can even put 0 and 20. Yeah. think it still will be the same. This will not be seen because the black color also has a RGB value of 20. So by doing that, I get this feature of our image. These lines are appearing to be dotted, and actually most of the dots are appearing at these points here, whereby the conjunctions of the lines, actually most of the lines are. So that is it with image 6. And in our 7th item, I'm creating a night scene whereby we are having our stars and our dark sky. So every time you refresh, the sky changes its color slightly, and the arrangement of our stars also change. And our stars have yellow marks, yellow to white color. So every time you refresh, you get a different skyline or sky color, but they're all dark, which enables us to see our dots. So to do this, I used the same elements that we used in our last image, which was this one here. Then after that, I made our sky to be dark. That is the background color, or the color of our document, to be anything between 10 to 20 for red, green and blue values. So it changes. Maybe you can add even maybe to 30. So the background color changes and gets new values every time the page is refreshed. Then for our dots, since the yellow color is usually 255 for R and G, then the blue value is usually different or changed. So I used the R and G to be greater than 200 but less than 255. Then the B for blue value, I used a random value which is 100 to 255. So that gets an array of different yellow colors for our stars, which actually appears as dots, and I make them small by ensuring that they are only move 1 or 2 pixels from their original position, as we had discussed earlier. So by doing that, every time I refresh the page, I get a different sky feel or sky background for a night theme, with the dots representing our stars. So that is what I did there. Then in the 8th video, I created a scene such as maybe you can say that it's like a rain scene, whereby the background is grayish with values of about 250, with values of about 200 and something, maybe 230. So I create a white background with values of 250, 250 and 250 for R, G and B, which gives it a gray feeling or theme. Then I got the code that I used to create these small lines or these particles from our last image. Then I used the same here, but made sure that our particles were blue in color. and I did that by creating the random values to be for red to be anything between 230 and 255, and so is also for green. Then the blue I put something a bit between, let's say, 200 and 255, so that gives it the blue color for our dots. Actually I didn't use this dot color, so since they are uniform in color, I just gave it some values here for a blue colored item. So, but I can also create some random values whereby you can give some allowances that would make it still look blue. For example, I can say maybe it's between 160 to 170 for the red value, 170. Then for the green value I would put anything between 180 to 200. Then for the blue value anything between 200 to 255. So maybe we can see the result here. Yeah, it's not bad, it's okay. So this actually shows some aspect of rain. Maybe you can come with a picture maybe later and put it in the foreground, maybe a picture of some clouds in the foreground and some hills or mountains at the bottom. You could also do the same here, where we can put a picture of some clouds in the foreground and a moon and some images at the bottom for our landscape or the hills and the valleys. So this is what I did for the rain, and maybe I can put here a positive value to make it have a negative gradient, and change the direction of the rain. So refreshing it, we can see the rain now starts, or the direction of these drops are actually come from the top left section of our screen. So that is it for that type of background. Then for the next background is I actually decreased the size of our image and made it repeat severally on the screen, and each image is made up of small components, small lines. Maybe I can just open it up, then we can see page 9. In this image, each image initially is 600 by 800 pixels. Then I create some random lines moving with a negative gradient, or moving from bottom left to top right. Then the lines I gave them a color of bluish, or you can call it light blue, this color here. So these are the lines on the image, and I am repeating it, doing the repetitions for the lines for about 100 to 800 times, and the image actually, its width and the height, it's 100, so it is repetitive. Actually the image is drawn once on the background, then it is repeated on the X and on the Y axis. So that is why we get this as the first image with about 600 to 800 lines in it with blue color, and they are drawn randomly, but each image on our screen is similar to each other because it's a repetition, but when you refresh you get a different pattern. And these are actually many lines that have been drawn, and since our width is small, they are drawn on a small like surface, and they are put like many of them together. This is it, whereby I'm iterating it 600 times, then making the width or the value of the difference between x2 and x1 to be either between 3000 divided by 8 to 6000 divided 3000 divided by 6, which is about, it's about 3.75 to about 5 pixels in width. So each of these lines here are between 3 to 5 pixels, and since there are many of them and drawn on a small piece, they actually appear to create this effect. So that is it. It's like a blurred effect, and all of our lines have the same color, the light blue color, but maybe we could maybe change our colors and get different effects, and maybe change the heights of these lines, and we'll get different effects for our background. So we can see now we are getting maybe dark blue. If we would like a green, maybe a green item, or yeah, maybe if we would like a green item, we would do something like that. Would increase actually the green value or the G value, and we'll get a different image for our background. So the last background that we have is the same as this background, but the height and the width have been reduced to, you're actually using a small height and width. You're using 10 and 10 pixels, 20 pixels and 20 pixels for height and width. So maybe you can do 180 by, maybe for RGB values you can use 180 by 210 by 200. And let's see that. We now get different color. Maybe if we'd like a green color, we can do, maybe this is 100, and you can do here 230, 39. So this one gives us a green pattern, and if each time the small pattern is changed or changes accordingly, whereby each pattern is an iteration of between 8 to 20 lines that they are drawn on a small surface. You can even do maybe between 3 to 10 lines and save it. Then we can see the outcome. Yeah, you can get something like that. It iterates or changes each time. Okay, thank you. I hope that you have learned a lot, and that this tutorial will be helpful to you or is helpful to you, and you can actually use some of the components here in your site. You can even use these images not only as backgrounds, but to maybe show capture for your capture system, or for any other components that you'd like to use. I only chose background so as to display how this works. Thank you.